6th Standard, Term 3, Social Science, Unit 1, Society and Culture in Ancient Thamizhagam, the Sangam Age. The Sangam Age. The word Sangam refers to the association of poets who flourished under the royal patronage of the Pandya kings at Madurai. The poems composed by these poets are collectively known as Sangam literature. The period in which these poems were composed is called the Sangam Age. Sources. Inscriptions. Hattiguppa inscription of King Karavela of Kalinga, Pugarur near Karur inscription, Ashokan edicts 2 and 13, and inscriptions found at Mangulam, Alagarmalai and Kilavalavu, all near Madurai. Copper plates. Velvikuri and Chinnamannur copper plates. Coins. Issued by Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas and the chieftains of Sangam age as well as the Roman coins. Megalithic monuments. Burials and hero stones. Excavated materials from Adichanallur, Arikamedu, Kodumanal, Puhar, Korkai, Aragankulam, Urayur. Literary sources. Tolkapiyam, Yettutogai, 8 anthologies, Pattu 10 idylls, Padinen Keerkanakku, a collection of 18 poetic works, Pattinam Palai and Madurai Kanji, epics Silapadigaram and Manimegalai. Foreign notices. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, Pliny's Natural History, Ptolemy's Geography, Megasthenes, Indica, Rajavalli, Mahavamsa and Deepavamsa. Time span 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD. Thamizhagam. Vengadam, Tirupati Hills in the north to Kanyakumari, Cape Comorin in the south, bounded by sea on the east and the west. Age, Iron Age. Culture, Megalithic. Polity, monarchy. Dynasties ruled, the Cheras, the Cholas and the Pandyas. Cheras. Moovendars, 3 great kings, ruled the territories of Thamizhagam during the Sangam age. The Tamil word Vendar was used to refer to 3 dynasties, namely the Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas, North Travancore, Cochin, South Malabar and Kongu region of Tamil Nadu. The Paditru Pattu, a collection of 10 decades of verses, provides information about the Chera kings. It is known that the Chera king Senguttuvan went on a military expedition to North India. He brought stones from the Himalayas for making the idol of Kannagi, an epic character from Silapadigaram. He introduced Pattini cult. Cheran Senguttuvan's younger brother was Ilango Adigal. He was the author of Silapadigaram, another Chera king. Cheral Irumporai issued coins in his name. Some Chera coins bears their emblem of bow and arrow. Prominent Chera rulers. Udayan Cheralandan, Imayavaramban, Nedun Cheralandan, Cheran Senguttuvan, Cheral Irumporai. Cholas. The Chola kingdom of Sangam period extended up to Venkatam, Tirupati Hills. The Kaveri Delta region remained the central part of the kingdom. This area was later known as Cholamandalam. Karigal Vallavan or Karigalan was the most famous of the Chola kings. He defeated the combined army of the Cheras, Pandyas and the 11 Velir chieftains who supported them at Venni, a small village in the Tanjavur region. He converted forests into cultivable lands. He built Kallanai, meaning a dam made of stone, across the river Kaveri to develop agriculture. Their port, Puhar, attracted merchants from the various regions of the Indian Ocean. The Pattinam Palai, a poetic work in the Padinen Keerkanakku, gives elaborate information of the trading activity during the rule of Karigalan. Prominent Chola rulers. Iranjat Seni, Karigala Vallavan, Kosinganan, Kili Vallavan, Perunar Kili. Pandyas. The Pandyas ruled the present day southern Tamil Nadu. The Pandya kings patronized the Tamil poets and scholars. Several names of Pandya kings are mentioned in the Sangam literature. Nedunjeriyan is hailed as the most popular warrior. He defeated the combined army of the Chera Cholas and the five Velir chieftains at Talayalanganam. He is praised as the lord of Kurkai. Pandya country was well known for pearl hunting. Pandya kings issued many coins. Their coins have elephant on one side and fish on another side. Mudukudumi Peruvarudi issued coins to commemorate his performance of many Vedic rituals. Prominent Pandya rulers Nediyon, Nanmaran, Mudukudumi Peruvarudi, Nedunjeriyan. The titles assumed by the Moovendars: Adavan, Kuttuvan, Vanavan, Irumporai, Seni, Sembiyan, Kili, Valavan, Maran, Varudi, Syrian, Tenner. Royal insignia: scepter, coal, drum, murasu, and white umbrella, Venkudai, were used as the symbol of royal authority. Cholas, garland, palmer flower. Port, Musiri or Tondi. Capital, Vanchi or Karur. Symbols, bow and arrow. Cholas, garland, fig, atti flower. Port, Puhar. Capital, Urayur or Puhar. Symbol, tiger. Pandyas, garland, Margosa, neem flower. Port, Korkai. Capital, Madurai. Symbol, two fish. Minor chieftains, Ai, Velir, and Kirar. Apart from three great kings, there were several brave independent minor chieftains called Velirs. The famous Velirs were the seven patrons, Kadayeru Vallalgal. They were Pari, Kari, Ori, Pagan, Ai, Adyaman, and Nali. They were popular for their generous patronage of Tamil poets. Kirar was the village chief. Sangam polity, kingship. The kingship was hereditary. The king was called Ko. It is the shortened form of Kon. Vendan, Kon, Mannan, Kotravan, and Irevan were the other titles by which the king was addressed. The eldest son of the reigning king generally succeeded to the throne. The coronation ceremony was known as Arasu Kattilerudal or Mudisootu Vira. The crown prince was known as Komahan, while the young ones were known as Ilango, Iranjeriyan, and Ilanjeral. King held a daily darbar, Nal Avai, at which he heard and resolved all the disputes. The income to the state was through taxation. Land tax was the main source of revenue and it was called Irai. This apart, the state collected tolls and customs, sungam, tributes, and fines. The kings and soldiers wore the heroic anklet Veera Karal. On the anklet, the name and achievement of the wearer were blazoned. Spies were used not only to find out what was happening within the country, but also in foreign countries. A wound in the back was considered a disgrace, and there are instances of king fasting unto death because they had suffered such a wound in the battle. The court. King's court was called Arasavai. The king occupied a ceremonious throne in the court called Ariyanai. In the court, the king was surrounded by officials, distinguished visitors, and court poets. The rulers had fivefold duties. They were encouraging learning, performing rituals, presenting gifts, protecting people, and punishing the criminals. Ambassadors were employed by the kings. They played a significant role. The king was assisted by a number of officials. They were divided into Aimberunguru, 5-member committee, and Enberayam, 8-member group. Army. The king's army consisted of four divisions, namely infantry, cavalry, elephants, and chariot force. The army was known as Padai. The chief of the army was known as Thanai Talivan. The prominent weapons used during this period were sword, kedayam shield, tomaram, lance, spears, bow and arrow. Tomaram is mentioned as a missile to be thrown at the enemy from a distance. The place where the weapons were kept was known as Padai Kotil. The forts were protected by deep moats and trenches. The war drum was worshipped as a deity. Law and justice. The king was the final authority for appeal. In the capital town, the court of justice was called Avai. In the villages, Mandram served as the place for dispensing justice. Punishment was also severe. Execution was ordered for theft cases. The punishment awarded for other crimes included beheading, mutilation of offending limbs of the body, torture and imprisonment, and imposition of fines. Local administration. The entire kingdom was called Mandalam. Mandalam was divided into Nadus. Kuram was subdivision of Nadu. The Ur was a village, classified into Perur, big village, Sirur, a small village, and Mudur, an old village. Depending upon its population, size, and antiquity, Pattinam was the name for a coastal town and Puhar was the general term for harbour town. Important towns: Puhar, Urayur, Kurkai, Madurai, Musuri, Vanji or Karur, and Kanchi. Tinai, tract based Sangam society. The landform was divided into 5 Tinais, eco-regions. Eco-regions, Tinai. Kurinji, landscape, hilly region. Occupation, hunting or gathering. People, Kuravar, Kuratiyar. Deity, Murugan. Mullai, landscape, forest region. Occupation, herding. People, Ayar, Aichir. Deity, Mayon. Marudam, landscape, riverine track. Plains. Occupation, agriculture. People, Vulavan Urathir. Deity, Indiran. Neidal, landscape, coastal region. Occupation, fishing or salt making. People, Parattavar, Nulathayar. Deity, Varunan. Palai, landscape, parched land. Occupation, heroic deeds. People, Maravar Marathiyar. Deity, Kotravai. Land was classified according to its fertility. Marudam was called Menpulam, fertile land. It produced paddy and sugarcane. The rest of the landscape, excluding Neidal, was called Vanpulam, hard land, and it produced pulses and dry grains. Status of women. There was no restriction for women in social life. They were learned and wise women. 40 women poets had lived and left behind their valuable works. Marriage was a matter of self-choice. However, chastity, karpu, was considered the highest virtue of women. Sons and daughters had equal shares in their parents' property. Religious belief and social divisions. The primary deity of Tamils was Seyon or Murugan. Other gods worshipped during Sangam period were Sivan, Mayon, Vishnu, Indiran, Varunan and Kotravai. The heroic stone Nattukal worship was in practice. Buddhism and Jainism also coexisted. Caste did not develop in Thamizhagam as it did in the northern India. Varna system, occupation based caste came into the Dravidian south comparatively late. Dress and ornaments. The rich people wore muslin, silk, and fine cotton garments. The common people wore 2 pieces of clothes made of cotton. The Sangam literature refers to clothes, Kalingam, which were thinner than the skin of a snake. Women adorned their hair plates with flowers. Both men and women wore a variety of ornaments. They were made of gold, silver, pearls, precious stones, conch shells, and beads. The people were fond of using aromatic perfumes. Arts. There are many references to variety of musical instruments such as drum, flute, and yar. Karigalan was master of 7 notes of music. Yerisai Vallavan. Singing bards were called Pannar and Viraliyar. Dancing was performed by Kannigayar. Kuthu, folk drama, was the most important cultural practice of the people of Sangam age. They developed the concept of Muttamil, Iyal Isai Nadagam. Occupation. The major occupation of the people were agriculture, cattle rearing, fishing, and hunting. Other craftsmen like carpenter, blacksmith, goldsmith, and potters were also part of the population. Weaving was the most common part time occupation of the farmers and a regular full time job for many others. Festivals and entertainments. People celebrated several festivals: the harvest festival, Pongal, and the festival of spring, Kartigai, were some of them. Indiravara was celebrated in the capital. There were many amusements and games. This included dances, festivals, bullfights, cockfights, dice, hunting, wrestling, and playing in swings. Children played with toy cart and with the sand houses made by them. Trade. Trade existed at 3 levels: local, overland, and overseas. The extensive and lucrative foreign trade that Thamizhagam enjoyed during this period stands testimony to the fact that Tamils had been great seafarers. Warehouses for storing the goods were built along the coast. The chief ports had lighthouses which were called Kalangara Ilangu Sudar. Caravans of merchants carried their merchandise to different places in oxen driven carts. Barter system was prevalent. There were 2 kinds of markets or bazaars in the leading cities like Puhar and Madurai. In Madurai, there were Nalangadi, the morning market, and Alangadi, the evening market. In these markets, large varieties as well as large quantities of goods were sold and purchased. Major ports: Mosiri, Tondi, Korkai. Main exports: salt, pepper, pearls, ivory, silk, spices, diamonds, saffron, precious stones, muslin, sandalwood. Main imports: topaz, tin, glass, horses. Trade contact with overseas countries. Archaeological excavations have confirmed the trading relation between the Thamizhagam and the countries such as Greece, Rome, Egypt, China, Southeast Asia, and Sri Lanka. Kalabras. Towards the end of the 3rd century AD, the Sangam period slowly went into a decline. Following the Sangam period, the Kalabras had occupied the Tamil country for about 2.5 centuries. We have very little information about Kalabras. They left neither artifacts nor monuments, but there is evidence of their rule in literary texts. The literary sources for this period include Tamil Navalar Charidai, Yaperangalam, and Periyapuranam. Sevaka Chindamani and Kundalakesi were also written during this period. In Thamizhagam, Jainism and Buddhism became prominent during this period. Many works under Padinin Keerkanaku were composed. Trade and commerce continued to flourish during this period. So, the Kalabras period is not a dark age as it is portrayed. Elsewhere, Gateway, Han Dynasty, China, 206 BC to 220 AD. Pyramid, Mayan civilization, Central America. Colosseum, Roman civilization, Italy, 3rd BC to 1st AD. Glossary, strove, tried hard, Dynasty, a line of hereditary rulers. Commemorate, to honor the memory of. Royal insignia, symbols of power. Patronage, support given by a patron. Blazoned, displayed vividly. Acquitted, released. Bards, poets singing in praise of princes and brave men. Warehouses, a large building for keeping goods. Portrayed, described elaborately. Arumuga Navalar, Jaffna, U. V. Swaminatha Iyer, and Damodaram Pillai Jaffna strove hard and spent many years in retrieving and publishing the Tamil classics and the ancient Tamil texts, which were originally present as palm leaf manuscripts. Tolkappiyam is a work on Tamil grammar. It represents the quality of Tamil language and the culture of Tamil people of the Sangam age. George L. Hart, professor of Tamil language at the University of California, has said that Tamil is as old as Latin. The language arose as an entirely independent tradition with no influence of other languages. Kallanai. It was a dike built with stones. It was constructed across the Kaveri to divert water throughout the delta region for irrigation. When it was built, Kallanai irrigated an area of about 69,000 acres. Women poets of Sangam age: Avvaiyar, Veli Vidiyar, Kakai Pandiniyar, Adi Mandiyar, Pon Mudiyar. Veerakal, Nattukal. The ancient Tamils had a great respect for the heroes who died in the battlefield. The hero stone were enacted to commemorate heroes who sacrificed their lives in war. Malabar black pepper. When the mummy of Ramses II of the Egypt was uncovered, archaeologists found black peppercorn stuffed in his nostril and in his abdomen as a part of embalming process practiced in olden days. Silk supplied by Indian merchants to Roman Empire was considered so important that the Roman Emperor Aurelian declared it to be worth its weight in gold. Mussuri's first emporium. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder writes of Mussuri's in his Natural History as the first emporium shopping complex of India. A temple of Augustus was built at Mussuri's, which had a Roman colony. The papyrus document, now in Vienna Museum of 2nd century BC, records the agreement between two merchant shippers of Alexandria and Mussuri's.